because I'm here every week with new videos to share with you guys. So this is very similar to a traditional beef stew, except obviously I'm not going to use beef. I'm going to use regular vegetables, and I am using wine, vegan red wine. So if you don't drink alcohol, we are going to cook off the alcohol, but if you don't drink alcohol, I've heard people make it with non-alcoholic wine, or you just skip out the wine part altogether. It will be a different stew, as the wine is quite essential for something like this. But if you want more recipes, I've got plenty of other recipes. Maybe this one's not for you. But for those of you who used to love a beef stew, this vegan version is going to make you very, very happy. So I've got some mushrooms here, some red wine, get a vegan red wine, some tomato passata, aubergines, rosemary, bay leaves, thyme. They're going to add some amazing flavors. So wintry. Garlic, of course, carrots, vegan veg stock. This is a mushroom stock, and also some Marmite. Now this is a vegan friendly Marmite, and I don't enjoy Marmite, but it really adds nice flavor. Then I've got some onions as well. Really simple autumn ingredients. First thing I'm going to do is add some oil to my pan. If you don't cook with oil, you can saute in water, but I'm just going to use some olive oil. So now that the oil is nice and warm, we're just going to get these onions and we're going to sear them off in the pan. So I'm going to cook down these onions until they are nice and brown. While the onions are cooking, I'm literally just going to cut up my carrots. Now these are organic, so I'm just going to leave the skins on, but if you want to peel them off, you are more than welcome to peel them off. And you just want to make sure that you cut them into relatively even chunks, just so they cook at the same time, and you don't have some that are really hard and then some that are soft. As you can see, they have really started to caramelize up, which is what we want. And now we're going to take those out and put those aside while we start to sear the rest. And at the bottom of the pan, we got all that really beautiful caramelization that's going to add so much flavor to the stew at the end. Then in that same pot, we're going to add in our carrots. As you can see, the carrots have now got that nice caramelization that's going to add so much more flavor. Just like the onions, we're going to set those aside so we can do the rest of the veg. Now you can all just cook this off in one pot at a time. I find for the tastiest stew, searing them off like this just adds so much more flavor. I'm going to roughly chop up some aubergines. You can use any of your favorite vegetables. I love aubergines, so that's what I'm going to use. And they also add a really nice flavor when we're going to put this in the oven. It's just really juicy. Then I'm going to really quickly just saute these aubergines just to get them nice and brown on the outside. Also just going to add in a little sprinkle of salt. Then I'm going to add in my mushrooms, and like the rest, give them a quick brown off. So now that the mushrooms have browned off, I'm going to put those aside, and now it's time to make a sauce. I'm starting off with loads of garlic. Y'all know me, we're going garlic heavy. Use 2 cloves if you like. I'm going to use about 6. So I'm just going to roughly chop them. You can mince them, you can buy them pre-minced, or you can just roughly chop them up. Adding my garlic straight in, and we're going to cook this down a little bit, but not too much, as we don't want it bitter. We just want to soften it up. Now that the onions have softened up a little bit, I'm going to add in some flour. The flour is going to help thicken up this whole stew at the end. Then I'm going to add in a really generous splash of vegan red wine. Me and my R's and my W's. Mix it together, and then you want to cook this off so it reduces, and we burn off the alcohol, and it also thickens up with the flour. Then I've got some bay leaves, some rosemary and fresh thyme, and we're going to add those straight in. And you can see it's also thickened up slightly, which is just what we want. Then I've got my tomato passata, which I'm going to add in there. Some vegan vegetable stock. This is actually a mushroom vegan vegetable stock. And then, as I mentioned earlier, I'm also adding in some Marmite. Like I said, I actually don't like Marmite, but I love adding it to vegan recipes like this. It just adds more depth of flavor and umami flavors. You could also sub this out for miso paste or use miso paste as well. I'm also adding in a tiny bit of liquid smoke, which is optional, as well as a little bit of tamari, soy sauce, or coconut aminos. As we can see, it's got that really rich, beautiful color to it. Adding in some black cracked pepper. Then we're adding in all those delicious vegetables that we browned off earlier. Lastly, I'm going to pop the lid on and put it in the oven to cook, so all the flavors can intertwine and mix together. So while the stew is cooking in the oven, I'm gonna make a side. I'm gonna make some mashed potatoes because it's classic. You could also use sweet potatoes. You could just void the potatoes if you want to. Make this your own, be creative, go with what suits how you like to eat. But today I'm making it with mashed potatoes. To make my really simple mash, I'm just gonna peel my potatoes. I recommend using russet potatoes, but if you can't get those, just use any. Then I'm gonna chop them into chunks, and you wanna keep the chunks relatively the same size, just so they cook in the same amount of time. It doesn't have to be perfect, just relative. Now that the potatoes are nice and chopped up, we're gonna add them to a pot. Then we're gonna fill it with cold water just to cover, then put it on the stove, season with a little bit of sea salt, and then we're gonna bring it to a heat and cook until they're soft. Once the potatoes have softened up, you just wanna drain it to get rid of all that excess water, and then it is time to mash up these